The movie opens with Henry, a seasoned former U.S. Marine who has just returned to China after years of grueling service. Haunted by the violence he'd witnessed in the military, Henry is desperate to leave his past behind and find a quiet, ordinary job. He decides to apply for a teaching position at Tokchi High School, the very same school he attended as a child. Unfortunately, the principal takes one look at him and feels Henry lacks the proper qualifications. He outright refuses to hire him, warning Henry that the school is overrun with troublemaking students and bluntly suggests he look elsewhere. But just as he's being turned away, Henry pulls out a glowing recommendation letter from a highly influential figure. Suddenly changing his tune, the principal immediately hires Henry on the spot, though he makes sure to mention that the salary will be incredibly low with absolutely no bonuses. Unfazed, Henry accepts the offer without hesitation. The very next day, Henry steps into his new classroom, only to find it in a state of absolute chaotic anarchy. He calmly greets his students, but not a single soul pays him any attention. Everyone is completely absorbed in their own world. One kid is intensely playing PlayStation, another is literally cooking a meal at his desk, and another is fast asleep. Unbothered, Henry strolls over to the makeshift kitchen and casually warns the cooks that eating too many noodles will flood their bodies with sodium. The students completely ignore him. Henry continues to make his rounds, offering unsolicited but genuinely helpful advice to every single student in the room. Even though they're completely disregarding the lesson, he tells one kid to keep his phone further from his face to protect his eyes. Slowly but surely, Henry's bizarre, caring approach grabbed the entire room's attention. He finally introduces himself, turning to write his name and phone number on the chalkboard. But when the students see his terrible handwriting, they burst into laughter and immediately go back to ignoring him. Deciding playtime is over, Henry picks up a piece of chalk and hurls it with deadly precision at the fire sprinklers. Instantly, the classroom floods with water. As the panicked students scramble to get dry, Henry stands tall and simply says, "Welcome to my class." During break time, a group of 5 notorious troublemakers huddles in the sports equipment room, smoking cigarettes and plotting against their new teacher. One of them, a rebellious kid named Jack, confidently declares that they will have Henry fired within a week. Suddenly, the school's wealthy elite basketball team bursts into the room led by their arrogant captain, Bob. Bob immediately starts mocking Jack and his crew, degrading them for being poor and pathetic failures. Jack snaps, aggressively grabbing Bob by his uniform, but Bob merely smirks and orders Jack's crew to stay far away from the basketball courts. Later, as Bob is practicing with his team, Jack plots his revenge. He sneaks near the court and tosses a water bottle directly into Bob's path. Bob slips on the bottle, crashing to the floor, while Jack and his friends laugh hysterically from the sidelines. However, the strict English teacher, Lynn, witnesses the whole prank. Realizing they intentionally targeted Bob, she swiftly punishes the group, ordering them to write out her homework assignment 10 times. Furious, the boys decide to get revenge on Lynn. Later, Jack hands her his notebook, claiming he finished the grueling punishment. But when Lynn opens it, she finds a massive bug waiting for her. She screams in terror as the boys smugly greet her and walk away. Startled, Lynn accidentally spills her drink all over her important paperwork and is forced to hang the wet pages in the air to dry. Meanwhile, the school principal is stuck in a tense meeting with an official from the Ministry of Education. He pleads for extra funding to develop and improve the struggling campus. However, the official bluntly rejects the request, stating that the school's academic performance has hit rock bottom. Back in the classroom, the students are eagerly setting up a camera for their ultimate prank on Henry. They balance a large bowl of water perfectly above the door, waiting for it to drench him the moment he walks in. But with lightning-fast reflexes, Henry effortlessly dodges the trap. The students freeze in pure shock, unable to comprehend what just happened. Henry instantly realizes they're trying to drive him away so they can spend the rest of the year playing games and sleeping. Turning the tables, he tells the class that if they can correctly answer 3 questions, he will let them all leave early. He walks straight up to Jack, demands his cigarettes, pulls one out of the pack, and challenges the room to name its chemical components. A student named Gordon nails the answer. True to his word, Henry dismisses Gordon, who happily packs his bags and leaves. Suddenly, the rest of the class is desperate to play along. Henry places a single cigarette on every student's desk. He breaks down the anatomy of a cigarette, paper, tobacco, and a filter, and asks the room exactly what the filter is designed to do. The students are hooked. One girl quickly searches the internet and answers that the filter is meant to reduce the inhalation of harmful toxic chemicals. But Henry shatters that illusion. He reveals that the massive tobacco corporations are openly lying to them. He explains that smoking guarantees lifelong addiction, drains their wallets, and generates a staggering $35 billion a year for the industry. As the students process this shocking number, Henry delivers the final blow. Every single cigarette they smoke steals exactly 40 minutes from their lifespan. The students are confused, arguing that this lecture has absolutely nothing to do with the official curriculum, but Henry fires back, stating that his real job is to teach them how to think critically about money and power so they don't get manipulated by greedy corporations. He declares that knowledge is power. He doesn't expect them to know everything, but he demands they learn how to think and differentiate right from wrong. By the end of the speech, Henry has the absolute, undivided attention of every student in the room. As the bell rings, he orders everyone to hand over the cigarettes. He pulls Jack aside, telling him he doesn't care what he does outside the gates, but he demands total respect for the school grounds. No smoking inside. We cut back to the high-stakes meeting between the principal and the ministry official. The official drops a heavy truth. In recent years, not a single student from Tak-Chi High School has been accepted into a university, and enrollment has completely tanked. The official delivers a chilling ultimatum. If the school's disastrous performance doesn't turn around by next year, the ministry will permanently cut their funding and shut the school down for good. The principal is left completely devastated. Later, during the lunch rush, Jack and his friends walk into the cafeteria. As soon as the elite basketball crew spots them, Bob decides to make their lives miserable. He purposely trips Jack's friend Bruce, sending him crashing to the floor. Bob then crosses the line, ruthlessly mocking Jack for being an orphan without a mother. Jack loses his mind, and a brutal, chaotic brawl erupts between the rich kids and the outcasts, tearing the cafeteria apart. In the aftermath, the principal summons Henry and informs him that 5 students from his class, including Jack, are being permanently expelled. But Henry fiercely pushes back, arguing that a school should never throw its own students away so easily. The principal defends his decision, explaining the harsh reality. The ministry ranks schools every year, and Tak-Chi is failing because of low test scores. To save the school, the principal believes they need to focus entirely on elite students like Bob to win public academic competitions and purge the system of failures like Jack. Henry passionately disagrees. He insists that a teacher's job isn't to turn kids into mindless test-taking machines, but to teach them how to critically think so they can forge their own paths in the real world. He argues that the entire modern education system is fundamentally flawed, reminding the principal of the school's own motto: every single student has the capacity to learn, and everyone can achieve success. Stunned by Henry's conviction, the principal actually changes his mind, granting Jack and his crew one final second chance. Not long after, Henry catches the same group of boys fighting yet again. He quickly breaks it up, reminding them that brawling on campus is strictly forbidden. A bitter Jack confronts Henry, demanding to know why only the poor kids were facing expulsion, while wealthy students like Bob faced 0 consequences. Henry ignores the class warfare argument and tells Jack that his only focus right now needs to be his education. He reveals that the school has granted them a second chance and hands over 5 apology letters for them to sign and deliver to the principal. While Jack's 4 friends swallow their pride and take the letters, Jack is utterly disgusted. He refuses to apologize and makes the drastic decision to drop out of school entirely. That night, Henry digs into the personal files of Jack and his friends, determined to understand what makes them tick. First is Gordon, a boy of Pakistani descent with a deep, lifelong passion for music. He once entered a singing competition but was brutally bullied off the stage because of his skin color. This trauma left Gordon with a massive inferiority complex. To make matters worse, local police constantly profile him as a terrorist, subjecting him to humiliating daily searches. Despite the pain, Gordon secretly holds on to his dream of becoming a famous singer and finally being accepted by society. Next is Gladys. Her masculine-sounding name is a direct result of her father's desperate wish for a boy. 5 years after she was born, her father finally got his precious son, and the blatant favoritism is sickening. Despite being the eldest, Gladys receives a fraction of the allowance her younger brother gets, simply because her father believes men need more money. Crushed by her father's rejection, Gladys grew to hate her own gender, chopping off her hair to erase her femininity. She feels completely invisible in her own home, ignored by parents who have absolutely no idea who she really is. In secret, Gladys is obsessed with cars and dreams of becoming a professional Formula One race car driver. Then there are the twin brothers, Chris and Bruce. Their childhood was shattered when their mother abandoned the family to marry a wealthy man. Left behind, they were practically orphaned as their devastated father spiraled into severe alcoholism. To cope with the trauma, Chris completely checked out of reality, burying himself in video games where he can endlessly hit restart when things go wrong. Bruce, on the other hand, was diagnosed with severe ADHD as a child. He struggles massively with focus and has been working a grueling supermarket job since he was just a kid. Even though the twins bicker constantly, Bruce fiercely protects his brother, acting as the man of the house. Bruce's only dream is to scrape together enough cash to move them out of their drunken father's toxic house. Finally, there is Jack. An orphan with no mother or father, Jack lives in a tiny rented apartment with his elderly grandmother. To keep a roof over their heads, he breaks his back working at a local restaurant every single day after school. Deeply moved by the tragic reality of these kids' lives, Henry vows to break through their walls. Days pass, and Jack's desk remains glaringly empty. He has completely abandoned his education to work full-time at the restaurant. One shift, a shady underground boxing promoter named Zhang walks into the diner with his crew. One of his associates, Choi, slides Zhang a photograph of Tokchi High School. Choi reveals that the ministry is shutting the school down next year, presenting a massive opportunity to buy the cheap land and bulldoze it to build luxury residential high-rises. Zhang is thrilled by the lucrative scheme. While the gangsters are distracted by a horse race on the TV, Jack boldly pickpockets a highly expensive lighter right out of Zhang's jacket. But Zhang is sharp. He catches Jack instantly and unleashes his thugs to beat the teenager down. However, when Zhang checks Jack's wallet and sees a student ID, he strangely calls off his men. Instead of punishing him, Zhang hands Jack a stack of cash and offers the desperate kid a job in the criminal underworld. Meanwhile, Henry heads deep into Gordon's neighborhood. As he arrives, Gordon sprints past him, having just stolen a concert ticket right out of his own family's hands to scalp for cash. His entire family is chasing him down the street. Misunderstanding the chaos, Henry assumes heavily armed criminals are attacking his student. He rushes into a nearby restaurant, grabs a massive kitchen knife, and prepares to take them all out. But the moment he realizes it's just Gordon's angry family, Henry immediately drops the weapon, apologizes profusely, and actually takes the family's side. He confronts Gordon, asking why he would steal from his own blood. Gordon shamefully admits he just wanted to go to a music concert but is completely broke. Seeing an opportunity to connect, Henry drags Gordon to a bustling street corner where a live band is playing. Henry steps up to the mic, starts singing, and calls Gordon up to join him. Terrified but exhilarated, Gordon sings in public for the first time since his childhood trauma. The street crowd goes wild, cheering him on, and Gordon's shattered self-confidence finally begins to heal. Over at the twins' house, a disaster is unfolding. Their father stumbles through the door late at night, chugging a full bottle of beer. He belligerently orders his sons to go buy him more alcohol, but both boys bravely refuse. Enraged, the drunk father unleashes his wrath on Bruce. Refusing to take the abuse, Bruce packs his books, storms out into the cold night, and finishes his homework sitting on the concrete street. The very next morning, Henry intercepts the father and firmly suggests he check himself into a rehabilitation clinic to finally cure his alcoholism. At the same time, Gladys is trying to enjoy a rare moment playing with her younger brother. Her father marches in, scolding her for playing instead of studying. He dumps a pile of expensive makeup in her lap, demanding she wear it tomorrow because he has arranged a meeting with a wealthy friend and his son. He expects Gladys to look pretty and impress the boy. When Gladys protests she has to go to school, her father brutally shuts her down. He screams that her opinion is worthless, no university will ever accept her, and his only goal is to marry her off and get rid of her. He then turns to his golden child son, softly encouraging him to study hard so he can go to America for college. Devastated but defiant, Gladys uses the makeup to paint her brother's face, sneaks out to the garage, and hotwires her father's prized car. Just as she's peeling out, Henry steps in front of the vehicle, forcing her to hit the brakes. He reminds her she doesn't even have a driver's license. When Gladys confesses her burning passion for driving, Henry smiles and tells her he has the perfect solution. He takes her straight to a professional Formula One racetrack. Even crazier, Henry contacts her toxic father and arranges a high-stakes race between the two. The father agrees. The terms: if Gladys wins, she gets total control over her own life. If he wins, she drops out of high school immediately and accepts the arranged marriage. The engines roar and the high-speed race begins. Both drivers push their cars to the absolute limit. Against all odds, Gladys outmaneuvers him and takes the victory. She demands he honor their deal, but her father's ego is bruised. He challenges her to a terrifying, illegal street race, and she fearlessly accepts. They tear through the dangerous city streets with absolutely zero mercy. Suddenly, the father loses control. His car violently crashes and flips over, while Gladys barely swerves out of the way of oncoming traffic, saving her own life by a split second. Trapped in his wrecked car, the father looks over and assumes the worst. He thinks his reckless driving just killed his only daughter. Breaking down in hysterical tears, he screams out that he truly loved her, never meant to treat her so horribly, and was actually planning to throw the race so she could win her freedom. Hearing this emotional confession, Gladys steps out from the shadows, tears streaming down her face. When the father realizes she is alive, he is overwhelmed with relief and pulls her into a massive hug. Henry watches proudly, stepping in to remind them that winning or losing means nothing. What matters is that they are family. Gladys firmly asks her father to stop controlling her life, and a humbled, changed man completely agrees. Admitting today was the ultimate wake-up call. The next morning, Chris finds Bruce asleep on the hard pavement, gently waking his brother and telling him to get dressed for school. But Henry has a special field trip planned. He loads Bruce, Chris, and a few other students onto a bus and drives them straight to a remote drug and alcohol rehabilitation clinic. Henry leads the class into a room to meet a recovering addict, and the twins are instantly paralyzed with shock. The patient sitting in the chair is Juan, their severely alcoholic father. None of the other students have any idea who the man is. Juan opens up to the room, detailing the exact moment his life fell apart. He explains that he turned to the bottle the day his wife walked out, sparking a brutal 10-year addiction. When a student innocently asks if he has any kids, Juan breaks down. He confesses he has 2 sons, but admits he has pushed them so far away they no longer care if he lives or dies. He tells the room he knows he's destroying himself, but his biggest fear is losing his boys forever. Juan cries uncontrollably, stating that his inability to communicate has ruined his life, and if he had one last chance, he would beg for their forgiveness and tell them how deeply he loves them. Listening to this raw, agonizing confession, Bruce and Chris burst into tears. They step forward, embracing their broken father, and the three agree to start entirely over. Henry smiles as he later sees a happy family photo of the three posted online, knowing he'd just saved a family from ruin. Meanwhile, Jack descends deeper into the criminal underworld. He visits the gritty boxing gym controlled by the gangster Jang. Jang pulls Jack aside and reveals his master plan. Jang has bet a fortune against his own fighter in tomorrow's underground match. However, the proud boxer refuses to throw the fight. Jang hands Jack a massive wad of cash and a vial of potent temporary paralysis drugs. Jack's mission is to spike the boxer's water bottle mid-fight, ensuring he collapses and loses the match. Jack is terrified and hesitates, but the money is too good, and he reluctantly agrees. Later that day, Henry pays a surprise visit to Jack's rundown apartment. He introduces himself to Jack's sweet, elderly grandmother. She happily talks about Jack, revealing they spend all their time together, but mentions he recently quit the restaurant to work at a boxing gym. Scanning the room, Henry's trained eyes lock onto the vial of paralysis drugs left on the table. He instantly connects the dots. Realizing the grandmother thinks Jack is still a perfect student, Henry decides to protect her from the truth. He lies, assuring her that Jack is doing wonderfully and is at the top of his class.
Night falls and the underground boxing arena is completely packed. Jang watches from the shadows, waiting for Jack to execute the hit. During a break in the brutal match, Jack successfully slips the drug into the boxer's water bottle and hands it over, but the eagle-eyed referee spots the foul play instantly. Before Jack can rat out Jang, the gangster orders him to shut his mouth. Jang's thugs tackle Jack, suffocate him with water, beat him mercilessly, and lock him inside a dark storage closet. Seconds later, Henry casually strolls into the hostile gym, calmly asking for his student. The thugs stay silent, but Jack's muffled cries from the closet give it away. As Henry steps forward to free him, Jang's army of highly trained professional boxers surround him, but they have made a fatal mistake. Henry unleashes a terrifying display of elite, military-grade martial arts. Moving with lethal precision, he absolutely dismantles the thugs, shattering bones and destroying the gym around them without getting a single scratch on his sharp suit. Seeing his men decimated, the drugged, massive boxer steps up to fight Henry himself. A brutal, earth-shattering brawl ensues. The giant overpowers Henry at first, throwing him around the room like a rag doll, but Henry quickly shifts tactics, tossing a blinding chemical powder directly into the giant's eyes, and then kicks a massive row of metal lockers down on him. Furious, the giant powers through, lifting Henry into the air and slamming him onto the concrete. The crowd goes wild for the boxer, but right at that moment, the paralysis drug kicks in. The giant freezes, completely loses consciousness, and drops like a stone.
Battered and bruised, Henry heads to the emergency room. The attending doctor is absolutely baffled that a humble high school teacher possesses the combat trauma of an elite special forces operative. The police arrive to investigate the underground war zone, rounding up Jang, Jack, and the rest of the gang. Jack tries to explain the situation, but Jang threatens him into silence. The arresting officer tells Jack he is going to jail unless a family member can post his expensive bail. Jack is terrified, knowing his grandmother barely has enough money to eat, but Henry steps up, paying the massive bail out of his own pocket. As they walk free, Henry looks Jack in the eye and tells him if he truly wants to make his grandmother proud, he will study hard and be in his seat at school tomorrow morning. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Jack happily agrees, staring at Henry in awe, wondering how this man is a master of everything. By the next morning, the news of the legendary fight has exploded across the city. Headlines broadcast that a random high school teacher fought a professional underground boxer to a bloody standstill. The media digs into Henry's past, revealing he is a highly decorated former U.S. Marine who actually attended Tokchi High School as a boy. The students are completely blown away. Their respect for Henry skyrocketed. The nerdy intellectual teacher is actually a top-tier lethal warrior. Desperate to know more about Henry's mysterious past, the students corner the school janitor. The old man spills the tea, revealing that a young Henry was the ultimate menace who literally broke the nose off the principal's statue. He skipped class constantly, and during a formal graduation ceremony, he pelted the piano player with water balloons, completely ruining the event. When the pianist tried to fight back, Henry beat him to a pulp. The cafeteria lady chimes in, confirming Henry was the most dangerous, uncontrollable delinquent in the school's history. The narrative flashes back to Henry's youth. The old principal sits down with Henry's exhausted aunt, breaking the news that the boy is permanently expelled. The desperate aunt explains she's doing her best after Henry's mother died and his cowardly father abandoned them. Seeing no other option, the principal strongly recommends shipping Henry off to a strict military academy in America to beat some discipline into him, warning that he will end up dead or in prison otherwise. Henry attends the academy, enlists in the Marines, and is deployed straight into a horrific war zone where death is constantly knocking. The horrors of war completely shatter his worldview. He learns the brutal true value of discipline and the agonizing reality that innocent people die for no reason. Haunted by survivor's guilt, Henry asks himself what the true purpose of life is. Searching for peace, he travels the globe alone, immersing himself in nature and learning from wildly different cultures. After years of wandering, enlightenment strikes. His true purpose is to return to the exact place where his life fell apart and save the next generation from making his mistakes.
He returns to China and tracks down his old principal, who is now on his deathbed. The dying man makes one final request. He begs Henry to become a teacher at Tokchi High School to protect the lost kids and teach them how to survive the real world. Honoring the dying man's wish, Henry accepts. The principal writes him the glowing recommendation letter, which forces the new administration to hire the completely unqualified Henry. Back in the present, Henry walks onto the campus a living legend. Every student and teacher stops to greet the hero, and his once rebellious class stands up to give him a crisp military salute. The classroom dynamic flips 180 degrees. The kids who used to cook and sleep are now hyper-focused, actively debating topics and fiercely competing to answer questions. Jack finally returns to his desk. The girl Jack has a massive crush on approaches him, offering to privately tutor him, leaving Jack over the moon. Meanwhile, Gordon fully embraces his talent, performing live music on school stages, entirely fearless of the bullies who once tormented him. The 5 core students finally start planning for their futures, researching colleges and studying relentlessly to chase their newfound dreams. However, Bruce is the only one left behind. Struggling to find a passion and battling his severe ADHD, he becomes increasingly reliant on powerful prescription focus medication to keep up. To prepare the class for the grueling national college entrance exams, Henry administers a highly difficult mock test. When the grades are posted, Jack is devastated to see he scored a failing 49, but Henry deliberately bumps his grade up to a passing 50. Confused, Jack asks why he got free points. Henry addresses the room, explaining that Jack actually failed the academic portion, but on the final essay asking what is the meaning of life, Jack ignored the multiple choice options and wrote his own profound truth, that life is simply about growing up and learning from our painful mistakes. Henry declares that kind of raw wisdom deserves to be rewarded. The entire class erupts into applause for Jack. However, Bruce quietly hides his test paper in absolute shame. He scored a miserable 8 out of 100. Henry sits down privately with the crushed boy, telling him a bad grade doesn't define him. He promises to tutor Bruce every single day after school to get him ready. But the pressure breaks Bruce. He becomes heavily addicted to his focus medication, popping pills constantly, while his brother Chris is entirely oblivious. Bruce starts skipping school. The chemical imbalance from a heavy drug abuse triggers a massive, debilitating wave of clinical depression. Weeping uncontrollably and out of his mind on pills, Bruce makes a tragic, reckless decision and throws himself off a high building. He survives the massive fall, but is rushed to the hospital in a deep coma. The media violently attacks the school, claiming the ruthless pressure cooker educational system drove a young boy to suicide. The Ministry of Education panics and instantly forms a disciplinary council to interrogate Henry. They list his endless offenses. His radical teaching methods violate the curriculum. He engaged in a highly public underground brawl. He possesses literally 0 teaching credentials, and in his very first year, a student attempted suicide. They demand an explanation. Henry remains calm but defiant. He states there is no easy excuse, but points out the dark reality that thousands of students attempt suicide every single year. He directly challenges the council, asking if the blame lies on the broken kids, the clueless teachers, the absent parents, or a toxic, standardized educational system that crushes their souls. He demands a total systemic overhaul, but the rigid council refuses to listen. They officially fire Henry and banish him from the school grounds. When the news breaks, the students are absolutely devastated. They chase Henry down before he can leave the gates, begging him not to abandon them. Henry is deeply moved by their loyalty, but his hands are completely tied by the ministry. He gives them one final motivational speech, begging them to crush the upcoming university entrance exams, and then walks away. The school plunges into a deep mourning. Henry was the only adult who ever bothered to understand them, connected with their passions, and saved their lives. The students openly weep in the halls. Recognizing their pain, Teacher Lin gathers the entire school. She tells them the outside world thinks Henry is a failure. She challenges them to destroy the entrance exams, get the highest scores in the country, and force the world to admit Henry was a legendary teacher. This is the only way to repay his ultimate sacrifice. Fired up, the students unleash a relentless studying campaign, determined to humiliate the ministry and prove Henry right. The remaining teachers work overtime to help them. News leaks that if Tok Chi's students actually pull off high scores, the ministry legally cannot shut the school down. The gangster Jiang and his greedy real estate partner Choi hear the news. Choi panics, knowing his lucrative apartment project is dead if the school survives. But Jiang smirks, promising he will personally take care of the problem. The morning of the massive entrance exam finally arrives. Suddenly, every student in Henry's class receives a text message, supposedly from Henry himself, urgently demanding they meet him at the school before the test. The loyal students rush to the campus, but Henry is nowhere to be found, and the clock is ticking dangerously close to the exam time. Suddenly, Jiang and his army of thugs kick down the classroom doors. Jiang reveals he sent the fake texts to trap them. His master plan is to hold the students hostage until the exam ends, guaranteeing the school fails and the land is sold. His men confiscate all the cell phones and herd the terrified students into the locked courtyard. At that exact moment, Henry is at home, packing his bags to leave China forever. He decides to take one last nostalgic walk through his empty school before heading to the airport. Strolling the silent halls, he spots Jack's distinct wallet lying on the floor. Realizing something is horribly wrong, Henry descends into the courtyard and walks right into Jiang's hostage situation. Heavily outnumbered, Henry doesn't even blink. He turns to his captive students and calmly announces he is about to teach them one final practical lesson: elite self-defense. Henry explodes into action, brutally shattering the bones of Jiang's men. He fights with terrifying ferocity, disarming the thugs and turning their own weapons against them. He screams at the students to run and make it to the exam while he holds the army back. After single-handedly decimating the entire gang, Henry locks eyes with the final boss, Jiang. Jiang sneers, taunting Henry that if he breaks his hand today, it won't be the first time. Jiang finally reveals his true identity. He was a former student at Tok Chi, a highly ranked Taekwondo prodigy. Years ago, Henry fought Jiang in a tournament and brutally snapped his arm to take first place. Even worse, Jiang was the piano player at the graduation party. When Henry pelted him with water balloons and beat him up, the damage to Jiang's arm was permanent. Jiang lost his ability to ever play the piano again, completely destroying his musical dreams. He blames Henry for ruining his entire life. Henry stands in stunned silence, utterly crushed by the revelation that his own reckless youth created this monster. A terrifying, destructive death match erupts between the two men inside the classroom. Henry tries to use non-lethal submission holds to force a peaceful surrender, but Jiang fights like a rabid dog. Despite his rage, Jiang is simply no match for Henry's elite military training. Henry completely dominates the fight. Spitting blood, Jiang screams that Henry destroyed his dream, so he will destroy Henry's. They absolutely obliterate the classroom during the brawl. Desperate, Jiang pulls a hidden knife and slashes Henry, attempting a fatal strike, but Henry easily disarms him, taking the blade. Henry holds the knife, possessing the power to end Jiang's life right there, but he breathes, masters his rage, and does the unthinkable. To pay for the sins of his past and absorb Jiang's lifelong hatred, Henry takes the knife and plunges it directly into his own body. He pulls the blade out, tosses it aside, and calmly tells a horrified Jiang that he's been looking for him for years, just to finally apologize. Bleeding, Henry turns and walks away. Meanwhile, the students sprint desperately through the city streets, bursting through the doors just in time to take the life-changing exam. Weeks later, the dust finally settles. Jiang, moved by Henry's ultimate sacrifice, sits down at a piano and begins the long, painful journey of regaining his lost talent. Jack opens a government letter and bursts into tears of joy. He and his grandmother have been granted a brand new safe apartment. The police officers who used to harass Gordon now eagerly ask him for the release date of his next hit song, treating him like a local celebrity. Gladys's father surprises her with the keys to her very own brand new car. Bruce finally wakes from his coma, fully recovered, and vows to conquer the exam next year. His father is completely clean and sober, working a steady job to provide for the twins. The exam results arrive, and Jack and his crew have passed with flying colors. The principal sits smugly across from the ministry official who admits defeat. The ministry officially cancels the demolition, keeps the school open, and grants the massive funding package to install air conditioning in every classroom. This total victory is entirely thanks to the legendary teacher, Henry. Before vanishing, Henry performs one final act. He secretly repairs the broken nose on the principal statue he smashed years ago. As the brand new school year kicks off, Teacher Lin happily hands out extracurricular club forms to the incoming freshmen so they can discover their true passions. Down the hall, inside Henry's old classroom, a brand new batch of rowdy, disrespectful troublemakers are causing absolute chaos. Suddenly, the water sprinklers burst open, flooding the room. The movie ends. And that wraps up today's story. But what did you think of that ending? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like, make sure to subscribe to Movie Recaps Hour, and hit the bell icon so you never miss out on the best movies. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.